to appear as something different when in fact it is the same form of violence. This has never been moral. This has always been based in violence, coercion, and duress, and has always been an immoral structure to believe in, to participate in, to enact. Anybody that has taken part in that structure willfully is an immoral being. They are a bad person. It doesn't matter whether they're participating in overt slavery and control or covert slavery and control. You cannot be moral while believing in that system. It is an impossibility in nature, regardless of what one thinks in their own mind or how they justify those belief systems. Next slide, please. You can call that system whatever you want, but I call it what it really is, and I don't sugarcoat it. It's slavery. It's always been slavery. It's slavery now. It will always continue to be slavery regardless of what anyone thinks of it. If they don't recognize it as slavery, they are wrong. That is the eternal truth of the matter. Next slide. Today, we have some people that have made the recognition that this is our current condition. Again, that's why this part one is called the current human condition, the problem. So let's analyze the problem like this. Here's a person who realizes that the problem exists and they realize they got to get from here to there. And the top of that peak on the mountain, next build please, is true human freedom. Or in other words, the abolition of slavery, of government. Next build please. This person represents someone who says they want freedom. And I make the delineation between somebody who's an actual freedom advocate and doing the things that are required to get to freedom versus someone who pays lip service to freedom, who says they want it but isn't actually doing the things to achieve it. In between the person who says they want slavery, representing the so-called freedom movement in our world today, and the actual peak, the goal, true human freedom, next build please. There are requirements for achieving the goal. And I am here to tell people the unfortunate reality, the truth of the matter, that the so-called freedom movement, the people who say they want human freedom, have not made any true, accurate advances through the requirements for attaining that goal toward the goal. At least in the last 16 years that I've been doing this work, and I've been well aware of what's going on in the world for longer than that, from an insider perspective, not from book knowledge. I worked with some of the people who are the eugenicists of this world. I worked with some of the people who are the real covert controllers of our world. At a low level, admittedly, not a very high level. But my background showed me a glimpse into the corridors of real power that sit enthroned behind ostensible power. And it was enough to scare the living shit out of me and wake me up and get me to start blowing the whistle on all of it. Because the depth of evil that I even saw is nowhere compared to where it goes, and most people have zero clue. Not even a small bit. In all the time I've been doing this work, I feel like we've actually gone backwards. More people may be aware of the problem, slightly more, but so few people really understand the requirements for attaining the goal that it's pitifully sad. Pitifully. They have not correctly analyzed the problem. They have not correctly identified what the solution to the problem is. And they're scattered in a million ways to the four winds of the earth about how they think this problem should be solved. But they don't really have the master key in hand. Next slide. This is a little bit of light humor that I bring in. This is the modern freedom movement, unfortunately. Yeah, it's dark humor, but I throw a little bit of it in. You know, I call this guy Chumpy the hamster because, you know, the freedom movement is chumped, to put it in street lingo. Okay? They're going around like that proverbial hamster on a wheel, and there is no movement. It's lip service to movement. But they haven't made any actual measurable progress toward the goal. And I'm not here to pat people on the back and say everybody's doing such a great job. I'm here to tell you the hard truth about what's going to have to be done. Because I fully do understand the dynamics of what will lead to that mountain peak. And most people have zero clue what it involves. I want to get this guy off the wheel and get him moving to the goal and up the mountain peak. Well, we got a long, 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 long way to go to get there. Next slide, please. Part 2, why does the problem of human slavery persist? So the truth regarding human nature. So we have to delineate between a condition versus what actual nature is, right? Human nature is not that we are either good or evil. We can be worked into those conditions, and that happens through information that we take in, that we believe, that we use to make all of our decision-making processes, and then what we act upon in the world through our behaviors. The human condition has been worked into a state of slavery because of what actual human nature is, and it's not what most people think that it is. We'll be talking about that momentarily. Next slide, please. I'm going to start this section with a quote about perception management and social engineering. These are just fancy terms for mind control. The people who really run our society do not do it through direct physical violence. They do it through making people believe, through repetition and media, that they must continue to support their own system of slavery through their behaviors in the world. And you can call that anything you want to call it, but I'm going to call it what it really is: mind control. And I worked with the actual social engineers and mind controllers of our world, once again, admittedly, at a very low level. But I saw what they did and how they operate and how tight-knit they are and how of one will they are. They're together like this. And what they say they're going to do, they do it, and they do it effectively and efficiently because their intellect is unimaginably superior to just about most people on this planet, unfortunately. They are the most highly intellectual. That doesn't mean that they're invulnerable or perfect or invincible. But they know everything about how human motivations, the human psyche, the human psychology works, and they can manipulate it at their whim. This quote is from Buckminster Fuller. He said, "The Dark Ages still reign over all humanity, and the depth and persistence of this domination are only now becoming clear. This Dark Ages prison has no steel bars, chains, or locks. Instead, it is locked by misorientation and built of misinformation. Caught up in a plethora of conditioned reflexes and driven by the human ego, both warder and prison attempt meagerly to compete with God. All are intractably skeptical of what they do not understand. We are powerfully imprisoned in these dark ages simply by the terms in which we have been conditioned to think. The mind precedes all manifestation. This is the first occult law, the law of mentalism. The mind is all, and everything flows from the mind. Most people do not understand this. The change must occur in the mind. If the change does not occur in the mind and in consciousness, physical manifestation of anything different is impossible, according to law. In the cosmos, not man's law, nature's law. That's where the change is not truly occurring. We believe that we can vote our way out of this, create some new currency, create some new system, reform an existing system, and I'm here to tell you it doesn't work that way. The change has to happen here. It has to flow to here, ultimately, where some would say it has to start with the heart, with care, and then the mind can then create the manifested change in the real world. Next slide, please. This is the part people are going to have a hard time with. Our world is ruled by the occult. It's not what you believe it to be. Part of it may be, but we have to understand what occultism is at its foundational aspects. It's hidden knowledge. It's hidden knowledge about how the human psyche works. It's hidden knowledge about how the real laws of nature work. The word occult is derived from the Latin occultus, meaning hidden. And that in turn, that adjective is in turn derived from the noun oculus, meaning eye, where the word ocular comes from. Occultism is the study of the hidden laws of nature, specifically those laws which are at work in the invisible, mental, and spiritual domain, far more than those that are at work in the visible or physical world. Therefore, occultism involves the acceptance of a much wider worldview than that which is ordinarily taken by the everyday person. Occultists, then, may be defined as those who study all the laws of nature, both those that are readily seen with the eyes and those which are much more difficult to see with the physical eyes or measuring instruments alone. And this is what the rulers of our world count upon, that our worldview will not be expanded to such an extent, and we will stay in a limited modality of awareness, such that we cannot see the laws that are operating in the non-physical realm, the realm of mentality and the realm of causation that underlie manifestation. They're counting that we'll remain ignorant of those laws. Next slide, please. And that brand of occultism I refer to in my work as dark occultism, because the occult is just information. It is just knowledge of how things really work. So as Derek eloquently said in his presentation, a hammer is just a tool. You can build a house with it, or you can crush skulls with it. The occult is just information. It's a tool to an end. If you use it for the uplift of consciousness, it's a very positive tool. If you use it for manipulation, control, and ultimately enslavement, it's an extremely negative set of tools. The wielder of the information is the one that sets the precedent for whether it's going to be used for good or evil. Okay? So I talk about the people who are taking this knowledge, holding it very tight to their chest, and using it for deception, mind control, and ultimately control of other people through it by controlling the ignorant and deceiving the ignorant and manipulating the ignorant. I call them in my work dark occultists. At its ideological core, dark occultism postulates that knowledge of the human psyche and knowledge of the laws of the universe should be hidden, should be occulted, and held only by a few human beings, the self-proclaimed masters of the world. It is much more accurate. This is one of the hardest things I've ever done, is try to explain to people what the occult really is, what Satanism really is, what Luciferianism really is. They don't want to accept it because of their religious backgrounds, modalities, ways of thinking that come out of organized religion and cultural religious belief systems. I've been in the occult directly. How many people have ever been in an occult order or secret society? Personally. I'm the only one in the room. Okay? So I was a priest within the Church of Satan in my past. I was appointed by the high priest and founder of the Church of Satan in San Francisco, Anton LaVey, before he passed away in 1997. I'm not proud of that. You know, I was roped into a cult, essentially. But you know what that did? That gave me deep insider knowledge of how cults work. And boy, did I learn how they work. And one of the hardest things is explaining to people Satanism isn't the worship of the Christian devil. It's a mindset of pure ideological selfishness. It's a way of acting in the world. It's a worldview. It's a way of seeing yourself and your relationship to the world and other people. And it's extremely sick, twisted, and psychopathic. And this presentation isn't all about Satanism. I have whole presentations on that topic from a first-hand insider's perspective, from a clergy member's perspective, quite frankly. But what I'm trying to do is just give you the base idea that what occultists really are, if we really want to think about this in the true way that it should be seen, is dark occultists